Good evening. We are starting the Bhagavad Gita. This is a continuation of chapter 13. We'll be doing from verse 13 onwards. But just for a recap, I will just give you an understanding of what we did yesterday. We had closed at what is called as the true knowledge of the divine. Now, when we spoke about on one side, it is the kshetra means the field means the created concept. This whole universe is a created concept. That was on one side, and on the other side, that which is not created but that which exists perennially, that is called the divine lord, and the knowledge of that, kshetragnya, the knower of the field. So when you have the knowledge of Brahma, knowledge of the divine, then you know the divine. So to know Krishna, to know the divine, means to have the knowledge of this divine. That is kshetragnya. So we had done that, and at the end we came to a point where it is established this Prakriti and Jiva. These are two entities, which is called Jiva and Shiva also in the Shaivite fashion. Here it is Prakriti and Jiva, where Prakriti is concerned and Jiva is concerned. Now both are neither Sat nor Asat. Sat means being and Asat means non-being. So this idea that you exist is wrong. You don't exist is also wrong. So we cannot say that this is right or that is right, or this is wrong or this is wrong. Till the point of what we call as equanimity of mind, equanimity comes into the picture, it is not possible to understand the truth about spiritual. So this is what we had ended. Now we are going to continue from verse 13 onwards. We are doing Srimad Bhagavad Gita chapter 13 verse 13. This is the description of the Brahma. It has hands and feet on all sides, eyes, head and mouth in all directions, and ears all around, for it stands pervading in the universe. Now, when we spoke of Mother Nature, or nature for that matter, now the moment the word nature comes into the picture, we get a finite picture in our mind, which means if I say Mother Nature, I will say the earth. Earth is, we believe that earth is Mother Earth. Likewise, we will say that the sun. So the concept of sun means that fiery body which you see outside of you, right in the universe. It is there up in the sky. Or if I take any other object, the moment I say nature, it becomes that object. Which means if I take a bird, the bird has a concept. It's a concept, but yet it has got a body. So the moment the body comes into the picture, it becomes finite in nature. Finite means it ends. The end is there. That means it has from its beak till its tail. That's it. So we have the bird in front of us. We have a human being in front of us. From the head, from the tip, from this place to the tip, toe. So if I take the human being also, we terminate it over there and we say that it is nature. But this nature which we are talking about is not that. When we speak of what we call as nature, it is the power within. The power within. The moment I say power within, power means Shakti. That is why, if you remember what I said to you, the Shakti concept. When we say the Shakti as a concept, it says power. And Prakriti, again power. Now when I take the power into account, the power is not finite, it is infinite. Take the example of a body in outer space. I can see a star which is billions of miles away. It is extending far, far into the universe, and yet I am able to see it sitting here on the earth. Now I may require a telescope to see. Maybe I require a telescope in outer space. But yet I am able to see. Yet I am able to make out what is there on that planet or the star or whatever. In recent times, you have heard of the black holes. Some black holes, some two huge bodies merged into each other. And then they separated also. So it was a very great phenomena that occurred. And yet I was able to see, and yet we were able to distinguish it. If I sit here and I can distinguish something over there, doesn't that tell me that power is really extended way beyond our thought and understanding? So now if I look at it, the idea when I do what is called as the Surya, Surya Namaskar, early in the morning people do Surya Namaskar, and I look at the heavenly body and I do the Namaskar, the entire process, few people do. But what we don't understand is the Surya is not the heavenly body outside. That's a physical body there. But the Surya exists within our body as well. It is represented in a number of places, in number of locations. One of them is the eye. Eye is one of the locations of the Surya. Likewise the Chandra, which we call as the moon. Moon is also located in the eye. So these are heavenly bodies plus representation in the body, physical body of yours. Doesn't that tell you that if I am saying my sun is rising or the setting or something like that, or when they say I have a Shani Dasha, Shani is a beautiful planet out there with so many rings. How can it be having terrible impact on me? But when we talk of Shani, we always look upon him as something, oh my God, there is Shani Dasha in my life, okay, Sade Sati. What is this Sade Sati? So that means it is affecting you. Then he is also a God. If you go to a Shani temple, he is a God who is completely dark. You must have seen Shani Dev is black in color. And when you go, you have to do all these offerings to him. So the Shani is outside there as a planet, he is outside there as a god, he is inside of you as a Shani Dasha or whatever that is happening to you. Doesn't that tell us that the representative level of all these is multifold? As a god, as a heavenly body, and in you. So it clearly defines that this nature by itself is threefold. First nature is macro, that is the huge world outside, the massive universe outside. Second one is within you, which is called the micro. Micro means a tiny dot of it is represented inside of you. And the third word is the physical manifestation of that entity called the God. God is the small God. He is not some great God. He is a deity, a demigod. Like we have Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, Saraswati, Parvati and Lakshmi. All these are called demigods. They are not God. Demigods, small gods, minute. So like this representation is there. Now I want you to think about what is being said. This nature, this universe is represented like this. So now tell me, how many eyes do they have? They can see, they can hear, they can touch, they can feel, they can operate. They have got legs in so many places. They have got ears and they can move around with their hands. So if I look at, say, any god, alright, let us take Surya Dev. Now Surya Dev is represented, now those who have gone to a temple where there is a Surya Dev, he is shown riding a chariot. I'm sure you have seen that, He's riding a chariot, there is one big sun behind him and there are horses right in front of him and he looks very dazzling and all golden in color. See, how many eyes do you think he has? Multiple. So representation of the universe, representation of this mother nature, or what we call as the Shakti, is multifold. It comes in various forms and in various places. So here, now when you see this verse, you will understand. It has hands and feet on all sides, eyes, head and mouth in all directions, and ears all around. For it stands pervading in all in the universe. So the created world is represented in multi-dimensional platforms everywhere by this nature. Think about it. I just gave you one example. Now if I look at Lakshmi, okay, Shri, when I look at Lakshmi, what am I thinking of? I am not thinking of some lady who is very nicely dressed and wearing all gold, jewels, bangles, this, that, all. I'm not talking about that. She's represented in so many ways. She's Gaja Lakshmi, Santana Lakshmi, powers. All these are powers. Dhan Lakshmi, Dhanya Lakshmi. Dhanya means grains. Dhan means wealth. So, multifaceted. How many eyes, ears she must be having? If we go to the Puranas, we will find that Lakshmi was born while the churning of the ocean was happening. But Lakshmi already existed. She is already the wife of Mahavishnu. How can she then be born in something else? The idea of being born, doesn't that sound very strange to you? How can Lakshmi be born? So then, there is a facet which cannot be understood. And that is why it is called nature. The nature of this universe, God created world, is represented like this. It's called representation. So when you look at a very great lady, don't we say, Sakshat Lakshmi hai wo? Don't we say that? And then you say, and then if she starts cribbing or bitching around about any other person, kaisi Lakshmi? We say immediately like this. But sir, she is a Lakshmi representing. It is her nature to rise high or to go down. So which one? It is always better to rise high. So I hope you understood how many eyes, ears, everything is knowledge incarnate. The world itself is knowledge. Right? So now we go to the next verse. We are doing Srimad Bhagavad Gita chapter 13 verse 14. Though perceiving all sense objects, it is really speaking devoid of all senses. Nay, though unattached, it is the sustainer of all nonetheless, and though attributeless, it is the enjoyer of the gunas, the three modes of Prakriti. So, description of this nature is so unique. Look at it. Though perceiving all sense objects, with those eyes, ears, nose, hands, legs, perception is there. What is the perception? Perception means I look at an object and I say this object is like this. Let us say a rose. A rose so beautiful. Okay? It is pink in color. It is red in color. Like that. We say these words, isn't it? And nowadays now mangoes have started coming. So, oh, Badami. Oh, Alfonso mango. How many varieties are there? Plenty. Some of them will be green in color, some of them will be red in color, some of them will be yellow in color, and different kinds of smells. You see, you take one mango and hold it near your nose. Don't you get those wonderful smells? So, if I look at nature, Mother Nature, smells are in Mother Nature. See, look at the statement. The idea of a smell being there in Mother Nature, that means a mango has a smell, a wonderful aroma. A rose has a smell, Chennai roses that you get, wonderful smell, yes. Or if you say, oh, the gutter is overflowing, dirty smell. You look at an object and you say, oh, such a beautiful scenery. I can see the mountains, I can see the sunrise. You can see all that. Here what is being said, though the object exists in that nature, called this object of smell, yet it is devoid of all senses. That means the mango cannot smell itself. Got the answer? The mango is giving smell to you but cannot smell itself. The rose gives the smell to you but cannot smell itself. Mother Nature gives us the objects but cannot eat it herself. Huh? So Mother Nature is giving us such wonderful, things around us, but can it digest that? Can it take it? Can it say, oh, I ate it, it was very nice? No. So the sense of enjoyment is not there. Though enjoyment is there in the object, but the idea called enjoying it doesn't exist. This is a twist. So you will see, though perceiving all sense of it can actually, perception is there, object is there, things are there, perception, colors are there. Look at the rainbow colors are there. Rainbow colors are there, and yet the nature doesn't enjoy the rainbow colors. The rainbow cannot enjoy itself. Oh, I have so many colors, I have so many hues. No. By itself, it is ephemeral, it is non-existent. Think, does the rainbow actually exist? No. It is only an illusion. An illusion arising because of refraction of light. Light by itself actually colorless. But if I break down the light in a prism, it gives me 7 colors, and then there are the other ranges which I am not even knowing that they exist. Like X-ray, X-rays are there, infrared is there, ultraviolet is there. So many other rays that come, radio waves, God knows how many other waves you can break it down into. Not known. It is there, but it is non-existent. Don't know. So it's the same way. It's like human nature. When we say human nature, you are a human being. Do you know your capabilities? You have no clue about your capabilities. If I tell you today, can you sing one song? No, I can't sing. But if I sit, stand with one big cane and give you 2 whacks on your back, you will start singing. You see the whole point of it all is, it requires some push for you to do something. We are like those, we say Bailgadi, bull. We are like bull. Till I don't give 2 fatak on the back, then nobody is going to move. Like that. You have the power and yet you don't conceive of the power itself. Human beings are like that. They always give reasons why they can't do things, but they can do. So this perceiving the sense object, it is really speaking devoid of all the senses. It cannot understand the idea itself. Though unattached, it is the, see, what we say as attachment, it is sustainer of all nonetheless, and though attributeless. It sustains everything. Think, when the rain falls, the rain falls on the earth, you get crops, wonderful crops. You get wheat, rice, this, that, so many of them. We enjoy those things. Now imagine this. Where does the earth enjoy all that? No. You sow one seed, it sprouts into one plant, isn't it? The enjoyment part is non-existent there. So here it is, and the earth is not attached to it. It doesn't say, I grew this. Imagine tomorrow the earth is going to stand outside, there in the field and say, you can't touch these crops, they are mine. I mean, just imagine that. This is mine. Or tomorrow when two brothers and sisters are fighting, or somebody is fighting for property, and they're fighting for whose property? Mother Earth will say, this is my property, none of your business, get out from here. I mean, just imagine, property belongs to the earth, but people believe it is theirs. Anyway, earth is not going to say. The reason is because it is unattached. It doesn't say this belongs to me. Nature doesn't say anything belongs to me. Brahma, the knowledge of Brahma can only come to you if you are completely detached. If you have attachment for some object, how will the knowledge ever come to you? Think, did you get the point? If you say this is mine, okay, that means you belong to that object. If you belong to that object, then you have to fight for that object. Let us say tomorrow you get married. You have a beautiful, wife, Aishwarya Rai type. And imagine everybody is ogling at her like that. You want to break everybody's eyes, don't you? Because she's so beautiful, you don't want everybody else to see. So you want to put her, covering on top of her. So this is what happens. So the idea is possession. Possession of any object is going to be misery for you. You get attached to any object, you are going to be miserable. When knowledge of Brahma is never going to come to you because you are attached to that object. Think. It can be anything. It can be your own parents, your relatives, your friends, the property that you stay in, the money that you have in your pocket. You carry a lot of money in your pocket, and just imagine, while walking, when you are removing your purse, $1,000 fall down. $1,000 note is there or not there? 500 rupees note is there. 2,000 rupees. 2,000 rupees note falls down, and you have not realized it. After some time, you realize, oh, I had money in my pocket. Where did it go? Where did it go? The whole evening is going to go thinking, where did it go? Because it was with you. Where did it go? It happens with the phones. You have gone to some restaurant or some place, and you are holding the phone in hand, and suddenly you are looking at some object. You keep the phone over there and you forget about it. And you don't recollect where you have kept it. You will take 10 phones from hey, can I have your phone? I just want to call up my phone. You want to call up your own phone because you want to possess it. You cannot leave it, let it be. Okay? This is called attachment. And here, Mother Earth, nature is not attached. Has no attachment whatsoever. That is why though it has attributes, and yet it is attributeless. When I am talking about all this, do you get the point that though you have attributes, you have color, you have height, you have eyes, ears, attributes. These are called attributes. You have a hair, body, like that. You have everything. But when you come on the path of the knower of the field, you don't possess anything. Nothing is yours. These attributes which you covet so much do not actually belong to you. So then what are you coveting? What is this that you are always thinking, this is mine, this is mine, this is mine? Even your body is not yours. When you die, your body is going to be consigned to the flames, or it will be buried in the earth. Do you think that body can be owned by anybody? So when you cannot own your body, why are you taking possession of it in the first place? And that is why Mother Nature, though it has attributes, yet it doesn't possess anything. This is the nature of nature. So, it is the enjoyer of gunas. Though attributes are there, it's the enjoyer of gunas. The three modes of Prakriti. Enjoyer of gunas means what? There are three modes of Prakriti, isn't it? Now, if I look at enjoyment, I want you to visualize Krishna. Okay, Krishna is dancing amongst thousands of gopis. The 1008 or 108 figure comes from what is called is the center. The center are two, which is called Radha and Krishna. They form the center. There are 8 principal gopis around him. That is 8. Next round is 100, 100. And the next circle is 1000. So 1000, 108 is basically how the figure comes. So 108 is a figure which talks about 100 gopis, 8 gopis and 2 in the center. The 2 are called the Meru. So when you do the japa, you will find that there are 2 beads, one on top of each other. You're not supposed to cross them. You can go this way and you can go this way. Right round, clockwise, anti-clockwise. You can do both, but you cannot cross over to the other side. The reason being very simple. You don't cross Krishna and Radha. No. You go in a pattern like this. So, imagine Krishna is there in the middle. How many Krishnas are there? As many gopis, as many Krishnas. Now, the gopi which is in the far left, okay, let us take one gopi over there. She says, he is my Krishna. But the one in the middle will say, oh, he is my Krishna. And the one in the middle will say, that is my Krishna. And the one right in the middle, with Radha, will say, that is my Krishna. How many Krishnas are there? Too many. Now imagine if Krishna is enjoying all these gopis, there is a problem, no? So, though being an enjoyer, yet, this is what he does. He is detached. Understand this concept. You have to be in this world like that. To be in the world, enjoying the world and yet not enjoying it by complete detachment to it. It is, I can say, for material worldly people, okay, you are taking a peg. So you say, no, I'm enjoying it. Like that. But intoxication, getting intoxicated by knocking off the whole bottle, 750 milliliters, then you have become an enjoyer and you are completely soiled and gone. No, nothing should happen to you. Nothing has to happen to you. Nothing. Which means senses are intact, everything is intact. But don't tell the police, otherwise he will not allow you to drive. See, pura bottle udaya. Okay, coming back to our words. It means this, though being an enjoyer, yet not being attached in anything. And this is the gunas. The Prakriti is divided into gunas. Sattva, Rajas and Tamas. If I get intoxicated and I am completely soiled and gone case, I am in the state of tamas. If I am just enjoying, I have a limit. I say only 2. Enjoy. Enjoyment is in the rajas. And the sattva, he just looks at the bottle and gets soiled. Doesn't get actually. He doesn't even bother about it because it doesn't make sense to him. So Sattva Guna is entirely like that. But yet he is intoxicated. Not in the bottle, but in the self. So when you look at a sage, a great sage, does he look intoxicated to you at all points in time? The reason is because he is operating from the highest level and lost in himself, so has no idea about his own body's consciousness. He has no clue that the body is there, not there. It doesn't make sense to him. So the 3 gunas, they are operating there. So I hope you understood how this object is there and yet there is no enjoyment in it. Got it? So we move to the next verse. This is an interesting verse. So we are doing chapter 13 from the Bhagavad Gita, verse 15. Now this verse has got a very, very deep secret. And the secret, though it is open, but it is difficult to grasp by human beings. See the verse the way it is written. It exists without and within all beings and constitutes the moving and the unmoving creation as well. And by reasons of its subtlety, it is incomprehensible, it is close at hand and stands afar too. It's a wonderful verse. Let me put it to you very simply. It exists within and without all beings. Let us go back to the first verse where I said the concept can be broken down into macrocosm, microcosm, and the deity. Three things I said. That means it is in everything. So if I look at this idea, who am I? Am I inside this physical frame or am I outside the physical frame? See, when people look at the shape of my face or the body, they identify me with the external, physical aspects. But is that me? No. The one inside, is that me? No idea. So if I show you a picture of mine in some, photo or somewhere, is that me? You will immediately say, yeah, oh, this is Guruji's photo, okay. Immediately you will say that. So where am I actually? So now this is the tricky part. It exists without and within all beings. What are we doing? We are doing about Kshetrajna, knowledge of Brahma. So the Brahma is within and without. Without means outside. Okay? So when I think about this, how can it be outside of me? It is incomprehensible. This is the whole problem with human nature. We cannot understand it. As a petty human being, you will never realize the potential that you have. How do you know you are the Brahma yourself? You look like an ordinary person with some body of yours and you think, kya karega? Immediately the thought comes, what am I to do? I can't do this, no money, no power, nothing. I wish I want to murder my boss, You think like this. You want to do something to somebody else because you feel so powerless. Powerless. Imagine you're going on a bike and the policeman said, and you are immediately scared. Kya puchega? Like you are thinking, oh, do I have my license there? Okay. Do I have the papers for the car or the bike? Okay. Insurance. Oh my God, I forgot the insurance. You see, you are scared already. And the fellow is stopping you. So think, it is like that. We cannot even imagine ourselves as somebody great. We think of ourselves as like a worst creature on earth. But you are the Brahma, the ultimate thing in this universe and outside also. You are that ultimate, and yet you don't feel any angle looking like, I look like some ordinary fellow, man, what to do? I just give you one example. There is one disciple of mine. I told him, sir, you do stand-up comedy, no? I said, yeah. Said, write one script. Guruji, I can't write. I said, then what are you going to do? So, it took me 6 months to brainwash him to make him write one script. After that, he wrote something. And then very scared. Guruji, I have recorded it. Can I send it to you? I said, okay, send it. So he sent it to me. Now, when I went on the call, he's looking at my Guruji, what are you going to say? You know that what are you going to say? As if I am going to eat you up. Come on. I looked at him and I said, you have done really very nicely, huh? Ah. You know that sigh. Ah, nice. Thank you, thank you. Sir, it is nice for the first attempt. It is good for the first attempt. At least you tried. It took me 6 months. You know, in olden times we had all those big Java and all the big motorcycle. How many kicks you had to give? You kick. Finally, it will start. And Bajaj never started. So you have to bend it back down like this and then start. So it's like that. Human beings are exactly like this Bajaj. Hamara Bajaj. I have to bend him backwards for him to start and give him a kick in his ass. Then only he will start doing something. Otherwise, no starting trouble. So, so the thing is, you are full of this power and yet, on top of it, you will still say, Kya karega? I don't know. I can't do this. This is not possible. The impossibilities are too many. Now do you get the point? When I say it exists without and within all beings, you are the repository of this knowledge. You are the repository of this Brahma. And yet you tell me, I can't do. Sir, Brahma is anything possible. All possible. Why is it not possible? The day you start realizing this, you would have crossed over. You are having the power to do anything. Remember, you are the product of Prakriti, Mother Nature. She has got all the powers in the world. Though she herself doesn't enjoy, but yet she has all the powers in the world. And these powers are endless. Endless is not the answer. We have to give examples of duds. Saying, look at Jack Ma, he started Alibaba. And you are like Charlie's Chor. Imagine like that. You are nobody, you are thinking, I don't know what to do. That Alibaba, short fellow, okay, Jack Ma, he started, now he has disappeared. He's gone into his cave. Khulja Sim Sim. So, he could start Alibaba, you can't start even your bike. No petrol. See, the point you got to understand is, you are capable. Understand, why do I have to keep on telling you this constantly? That you kar sakte ho, kar sakte ho, kar sakte ho, kar sakte ho. It's like, imagine, you can do it, you can do it. Nike. Do it. Aur bhaiya, kitne baar Nike karoge? So, this truth has to be understood by everyone. This Brahma exists within and without all beings. There isn't a single thing in this universe which can be excluded from it, and constitutes the moving and the non-moving. Now you will say, non-moving in a stone? Sir, if I put the stone in front of you and I put one tikka red color dot on it and I say, Shri Ram ki jai ho, and immediately next day you will start worshipping it as Shri Ram. You know that? Isn't it the truth? Just imagine, I take one stone, round stone, and I put one red dot on it or white, something like that. Wow, this is so great. It's a non-moving object and now it has become great for you. How is that possible? Did you get the understanding? Power is within and without. Now, did that stone have the power? Think. Did that stone have the power? The answer is yes. It was not tapped. But the moment I put one tikka on top of it, one dot on top of it, it has power. It became God. Got the answer? Same way with you. You think of yourself like some dog, like a pig, What am I to do? I can't even get up in the morning. No, put one tikka on yourself. And then you rise from that depth of your tamas, and you will find that the God is within you. This is the truth. You are not that moving or non-moving thing. You are the real manifestation of the divine, and yet you can't see it, and yet you can't feel it. This is where the problem lies. It exists without and within all beings, and constitutes the moving and the unmoving creation as well. And why we don't understand? By reasons of its subtlety, it is incomprehensible. It is so subtle, you cannot understand the power it withholds within or outside of it. If a chai wala can become a prime minister, think, when we think of Narendra Modi, we think chai wala tha wo. Lekin he is a prime minister, sir. How is that possible? That means from there to there. Why is it not possible? Possibilities are endless. But can you see that thing in you? The reason why you cannot comprehend who you are or what you are, even the essence of the divine, is because it is so subtle. It is invisible to your own eyes. You cannot even understand the depth of what it is, because you have never explored your own potential. The potential that you hold, the potential this universe holds, is humongous. Think. It is something which cannot be understood by mankind. It required a person like Einstein to predict a formula. E is equal to mc square, which proved even a gram, 1 gram of uranium has got so much power. You may say, okay, but it has to be refined, and of course it has to be refined. You have to get it to the level of 235, then only it will have its impact. Same way, think about the pestle used for banging certain things was responsible for killing Sri Krishna. A tiny piece of metal. Today's day and age, one tiny virus is killing people. Imagine that. Virus. What is virus? It's a strand of protein. Virus is nothing but a protein strand, dhaga. And that is killing people. Imagine how much of potential is there. So, it is subtle, cannot be understood. That is why it cannot be understood. The subtlety of that thing, whatever the powers that are there, cannot be understood because we cannot see beyond our nose. It is impossible to understand this truth. It is incomprehensible, not understood. And that is why it is said, though it is close at hand and it stands too far. इधर बैठा है, दिखता नहीं है. He's sitting on top or in on tip of your nose, and yet you can't see. Got it? That is what he says. It is so far, so near, and yet so far. You got to know this. Why do you have to always suffer? Everything is on the palm of your hand. Believe me, the whole universe can be in the palm of your hand. It is all about having that absolute faith. Absolute faith. So when I was telling you about the gopis and Krishna, what makes you think that Krishna is not within you? Krishna is called the divine consciousness, supreme divine consciousness. And the gopi is you. You are constantly having what is called as a Ras Leela with him. And yet you don't see him. This is the truth about spiritual. So we move to the next verse. We are doing Srimad Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, verse 16. Though integral like space, in its undivided aspect, it appears divided as it were, in all animate and inanimate beings. And that Godhead, which is the only object worth knowing, is the sustainer of all beings, as Vishnu, the destroyer as Rudra, and the creator of all as Brahma. Think. In India, how many gods are there? Countless. And their gods are born every minute. Like Santoshi Mata ki jai ho. Nobody knows where she came from, but today she is there. You go to any village, you will find so many temples. You go to anybody's house, they will have their own god. I don't know their names. You go and ask them, they will give you a whole load of information about their god. Where he came from, no idea. Gods are tremendous, too many of them. Tomorrow I can put one stone next to my house and say, no, this is God. Pray to him. That becomes God. There is this fellow, a rapper, not a chocolate rapper. He went and put one drop of blood in his shoe. Okay? And he says this is a shoe with a blood in it. And he got sued for it. But imagine, what is he doing? Why put blood in the shoe? I don't understand. Okay, I think he's got a weird sense. Maybe he's saying कि पहले से I am hurt in my leg or something like that. It's a very good example. But what does that mean also? I have no clue. But tomorrow somebody will come with a very deeper explanation for that. You don't even understand. And then somebody will say, very great understanding. Philosophical. It's philosophical. I don't know what angle the philosophy. So this is the funny part about what we say as you can find this in anything. People in India find God in any place, like I told you. Have you heard of any place in the world where they pray to the private parts? In India, we pray to all the parts. We consider God everywhere. They are not going to leave anything. They will take one hair, and they will put it in one taviz, and they will say, with this you will not get dreams. Just imagine, bhalu ka bal. You put it in one thing and you don't get dreams. I don't understand from what angle. But you have to know this. This is the power of Brahma. Can't be understood. So here, the strange part about this Godhead is being explained. Though integral like space in its undivided aspect, it appears divided as it were, in all animate and inanimate beings. There is the idea of Godhood in everything. Okay? it gets divided. If I ask you, do you know Shiva? Oh, yeah, I know. Rudra? Yeah, I know. How many Rudra? That also I know. How many names does he have? 1,000, I think. Oh, no, more than that. Oh, no, more than that. Sir, endless. Endless is the word. So what name do you want? Nilkant? Yeah, he is also called that. If I take Vishnu, how many names is got? Sahasranam. Okay, fine. That means he has got so many qualities. I don't even know that. Brahmaji, poor fellow, has got 5 heads but only one name. Why? Because he has production company. He just produces taka like that, And his job is only that. He is not bothered about whether you give him 100 names or. He says one temple is more than enough for me. There's only one temple of his. Rajasthan, there is only one temple of his. Rest of the time, he's too busy. He's in the Rajas mode, that's why. So, these gods are there. They are aspects of the same. What I mean is, the undivided got divided into Brahma, creator, Vishnu, sustainer, and Maheshwara. Sorry, Rudra. Okay. See, I told you, one more name. So, one more name he has got. So, divided into all 3. But does it stop there? It has got rivers, tributaries, and after that, God knows what all things. Finally, it will come inside your house also. This is the point about the vastness of it and yet oneness of it. So this one, Ganga, how many rivers are there in Ganga? It starts from Gangotri. No, Guruji, not Gangotri. Gomukh. So Gomukh starts from where? Himalayas. Where in Himalayas? I don't know. Tibet, I think. So, don't know where it comes from, but it becomes a river. By the time it ends over there in Bengal, Bengal is, Amma over there says, don't call it Ganga. Hooghly River it is. Oh, yes, boss. Hooghly River. So I'll call it Hooghly if you want. So wherever you want, you can call it by whatever name you want. Bhagirathi. How many names are there? So many. Same Ganga, by the way. And when Krishna is saying, he's sitting in the heavens, and Ganga is trying to hide herself from Radha Rani who is coming over there. Radha Rani, she doesn't like anybody interfering with Krishna. She doesn't like anybody sitting with him. So, who is there? So Ganga becomes invisible, and then Krishna says, hide below my feet, hide below my feet. And poor thing goes below his feet. And when he goes walking on the earth, it becomes Ganga coming out from his feet. You got the point? So Ganga comes from his feet. Even there in the heavens, he is like that only. So stories wherever you want, of whichever God you want is there. Endless stories are there. So this diversified nature. See, funny aspect, though the truth, the diversified nature comprising of so many aspects, can never be understood. And that is why he says, this undivided aspect appears divided everywhere. So what you may be praying to could be anything. But understand this, it all stems from one. Did I not tell you this is also a lesson on Advaita when I started this chapter? Krishna explaining Advaita. Imagine. Though he doesn't explain, but he's telling. Because Arjuna has to know. Everything stems from one, and yet it becomes multifolds. Huge differentiation goes here, there. Though integral like space in its undivided aspect, it appears divided as it were. This itself I will explain. If I take the space, the endless space in front of me, can you catch hold of the space anywhere? No. But when it becomes quadrants, you'll ask me what is a quadrant? Sir, you go to your Kundali, you will find quadrant in that, okay? They divide it like that, okay? So in the quadrant you will find, oh, the star is existing over there. Oh, the sun is over there. You say these words, isn't it? This one rising, that one setting, and all those things. You say Kundali mein. So where did the quadrants come from? They came because of this. It appears divided. Can you divide the space? No. But yet the quadrants came into the picture. We have the north also, south also, east also, west also, everything. Don't we have all that? So if I go outside in outer space, where is the north, by the way? I go on some, maybe I am standing on top of one gold rock. Okay. Is there asteroid belt में gold rock है, उसके ऊपर खड़े रह के I am going to say, this is the north. Wherever I want, I can have the north. Got the answer? There is no north, there is no south, there is no east, there is no west. All these are illusory. Just like latitude, longitude. Doesn't exist. Tomorrow you will say, no, oh, international date line. There is no, I mean, you just imagine the ship is going to stop over there. This is the international date line. मतलब मैं उस तरफ एक पैर रखता हूँ, इस तरफ एक पैर रखता हूँ. It will be 1st of April, 31st of March. See? That is the funny part. It doesn't actually exist, but yet it appears so many times. So this is the funny aspect about space. It appears in everything. So, because of that, and that Godhead, which is the only object worth knowing, this Godhead, the Brahma, from which everything has come. There is one Brahma. He is the father, everything, father of it. Father means I don't even know father or mother, but I just have to say, he is the one who created this whole thing. He is the only one to be known. But today what we do? We create Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, this fellow, that fellow. I don't know how many gods. Sir, no only Ganga. Both ho gaya. Godavari, Kaveri, Krishna, this one, no need. Take Godavari water also, say Krishna ka hai, yeah, whatever, it doesn't matter. You say Ganga hai, Ganga Jal. Now do you get the point? Ganga exists outside and inside also. Multifarious, yet one. So why do you want to know multifarious? Why do you want to know all these things? Go to the root, the Brahma. So this example is about going to know this one God alone. Why do you need to know the plethora of gods that are there? Why do you have to worship so many of them? So, this is what we have to know. Though the only one is supposed to be worth knowing, and yet in different aspects it acts like sustainer, Vishnu, destroyer, Rudra, and creator, Brahma. So this differentiation got created because you have to know. But remember, I have to go to the point number 1. So we have come to the end of verse 16. So we will stop over here, and tomorrow we will have the verse 17 continued. Alright, so take care. Have a great evening. Bye. See you all.